To sink or swim, we just try to survive in this dog-eat-dog world. Let me ask, what went wrong? What went wrong? Survival of the fittest. I love the Emily cover of that song.
It is really good.
It is really good. Welcome, everyone. Hello.
This is podcast
120.
120.
Uh-huh.
Yep. We're going to be talking about Vinland Saga or
Vinland Saga.
Canute Saga.
I mean, it's a lot of characters to get into here. It's hence the saga bit.
That's right.
We've got so many things to talk about. This was, in my opinion, one of the best anime to come out in the last 5 years. I would say I would put it up there in my top 10 in the last 5 years.
Well, what's crazy is that 5 years ago was 2015.
I know.
So
I'd still say
no, I know.
As far as a new show, because I wouldn't count any sequels as in that list there. Like a new show coming out.
Right.
If you think about new shows coming out in the last 5 years,
right?
Vinland Saga, I am having to bite my to hold myself back to not read the manga, basically.
Gotcha.
This ending was my kind of go read the manga ending. Very much not the Berserk.
This was
way.
a Canute ending.
It was quite spectacular. Welcome, everybody. Hey, not Jeff Guy Woo, first time watching live. Hey, Lairdum. Hey, Family Guy 10. I just like how Askeladd pronounces whales.
Whales. Yes.
How does he pronounce it, actually? That's a good question.
Well, so is the Eclipse.
Hey. So, Shy, way to go, Shy, deleting someone's message there. No talking about manga stuff.
Yeah, not
we
at
are
all.
Anime onlys. That is how it be.
If you want manga stuff, then,
there are probably plenty other channels out there for you.
And also, Attack on Titan, you may. Let's go. But yeah,
absolutely. So we have our first season, hopefully our first season of Vinland Saga, and it's not just going to be this and then they never make any more, because I would say, Jacob, we're not going to go into ranking Vinland Saga or anything like that, but would you say that Vinland Saga exceeded your expectations by a little or a lot?
So that's the weird thing. The weird thing. It exceeded my expectations by a good amount. I can't really say by a lot, because I figured I was going to absolutely love it
at a certain point
before even watching it.
Oh, really?
Before even because it's because when people say hey, it's a good thing that is historical, kind of time period and stuff, it's that just sounds like something that's going to be amazing.
Right.
I had people saying that it was that it was on the same level in their mind as the Berserk manga.
Yes.
So
I heard that too.
That's kind of high praise.
Yeah.
Now there was still that bit of apprehension of okay, hold on, and also we've seen how Berserk manga adaptations can go. So let's see how this goes.
I personally was really, really excited once they told me that it was Studio Wit doing this.
Oh, yeah. With Studio Wit, I was very excited. I was still a little bit apprehensive, because as we've seen in Attack on Titan, there are times where it looks amazing, and then there's times where, we just sort of... we just don't really think about those too much, right?
Right, exactly.
But once that first episode happened, before, once that whole scene with Thor's and then the OP, I was so unbelievably sold that there was no doubt in my mind at all moving forward that I was going to absolutely love this. And then from the narrative side of things, it kept blowing me away with just that whole bit with Thor's in the beginning, and I see the thing is Mufasa has a certain level of trauma that he inflicts on and has inflicted on, our generation, right?
Dad, wake up.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta go home. Yeah. The fact that that is the only comparison I can really make for Thor's is to Mufasa. That should say a lot.
Yeah.
Because it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say when I think back on Vinland Saga, my immediate thought is that I want to rewatch all of it. There's shows that in the past where I get really excited about rewatching specific episodes.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because some shows clearly have, highlight moments, highlight specific bits there that once those, highlight moments happen, you realize, oh my God, yes, this was absolutely worth the whole journey to get here. Mm-hmm. And I really, really enjoyed even like the extremely slow parts of Vinland Saga. Yeah. Like this is something that I really, really appreciate about the show. There's a lot of characters, but there's only actually a few really main characters in the in the focus of the story from like a perspective standpoint.
Sure. Yeah.
Like we only get a few characters getting that backstory, right. that character depth, that development, mm-hmm. that it carries them across the whole show. So like Askeladd, Thorfinn,
Thorkell, Canute,
Thors. Yeah. Thorkell. I would say maybe in some ways,
Swain or Floki on like really minor levels.
I would say there are a lot of minor characters out there that are definitely in the main character parts for that time in the saga where they're there, like Ragnar, for instance.
Sure. That one girl that ended up running away and not dying.
Bjorn had some parts too, but I love ensemble casts when you feel like every character is being respected. And Vinland Saga over the course of time just made me fall in love with the idea that anytime a character gets given the slightest bit of focus or spotlight or anything there, they're going to be treated respectfully.
Yep.
I didn't ever feel like condescended by the show with regards to how they would handle the character development. I felt like the show in some ways just said, hey, this is a story bigger than any of these characters in a lot of ways, Saga, and we're going to go on a journey. So just be along for the ride.
Yep.
Because it's a ride. And it has ups, it has downs, it has slow parts, it has fast parts. It has moments of introspection and moments of just gritty violence.
Yep.
And all of it also felt rather beautiful. Does anyone out there in chat get that feeling when you're watching Vinland that there were moments where the show got dark?
Yeah.
But throughout the course of the story, you just had this feeling of like transcendent beauty going throughout everything there.
Yeah, like there were certain things that they did in the show that absolutely didn't need to be in there in a way, because like, okay, the two brothers talking with the priest about,
love.
About what is love, right?
Right.
Not super relevant for Thorfinn's story, or even Canute's, really. I mean, kind of, because it plays into the whole...
It's thematically appropriate.
It's thematically appropriate, but and it certainly comes into play later with his realization and whatnot.
Right.
But plot-wise, doesn't really matter. And it's between characters whose, like, overall consequence in the story, as far as we know, is next to none.
I mean, we now know that this is all the prologue. The main story has still yet to actually start.
Yeah, so maybe that priest is actually going to, do some stuff before
and those brothers are going to, be out there.
They are going to be living out their lives peacefully.
Yeah.
Never picking up a sword again.
Hopefully.
Before
we get too far into the podcast, we've got to give a shout out to one of our VIP patrons, Lynn Talo. Thank you so very much for the support. Means a lot.
Yeah.
And love seeing you on the Patreon comments, but would love to see you more in the Discord as well. So thank you very much for the support. It means a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Eleanor, someone's saying, useless trivia. Thorfinn is based on a real person. I'm slightly aware. I am slightly aware. The two people that are primarily based on real people that don't feel like they're based on real people is Thorkell and Thorfinn. Because they're just ridiculously like anime and in many different ways.
Yep. Because Canute, it's like, okay, next stage of,
Well, I unfortunately couldn't hold myself back with Canute. And
even Thorkell. Like,
well, Thorkell, no, I only had one major blunder with Thorkell.
Canute and Thorkell do some stuff together.
Yeah, that was yeah. That's yeah.
Oh man,
but just letting you know that Best Girl is going to be okay throughout the first season, though. Is that really that bad? You know,
I am so excited for us to finish Attack on Titan, so that I can show you all the things that I didn't spoil you on. But Vinland Saga, it's wonderful. Vinland Saga scratches an itch that does not often get scratched.
Yes, I agree.
Like let's be real here. We, back in the day, I'm loath to admit this, but we watched Legend of the Seeker because we were that desperate for any kind of fantasy television, right? Yeah. Now, Vinland Saga is not fantasy. It's historical fiction, right? So, that is a distinction. But the need and desire and drive to see people with swords hacking off other people's heads and blood and armor and blood and horses and everything, that is a very fundamental desire in all of us, but in me and Caleb in particular. So, getting something like Vinland Saga...
I'm like, we're cutting to somewhere. Where are we going?
This is a gem that we do not often get to be able to appreciate. Mm-hmm. And we've been starved for it. Mm-hmm. Very starved for it. Even things like Game of Thrones let us down. Things like Berserk, we get the wonderful medieval stuff in the beginning before it turns into horrible depression and darkness and death and awfulness and suffering.
Yeah.
Vinland Saga, we get to basically take that golden age arc of Berserk, sans that thing that happens at the end, and just sort of live in that happy place for a long time. Of course, it's not all happy because there's plenty of horrible things that happen, but we get to just be there. It's wonderful. It's sublime. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that very easily can be underappreciated, taken for granted, in fact.
Yeah, so what I take from that, because I more specifically have nothing with regards to the lack of itch of fantasy in anime. There's plenty of fantasy, but no, specifically historical fiction. Historical fiction for me is something that I read a lot of growing up. It was really fun to read history books and understand that I'm supposed to take everything with a grain of salt because my perspective character is completely... false. He doesn't exist. Yep. He or she is not a real character. Mm-hmm. So then I can go, oh, okay, they're going to embellish on specific things, but all the names, dates, and places and things and what have you, those are real. Yeah. Those are real. But being able to have that here where I don't really know that much regarding the history of what happened at this specific time. I more of know a couple things about what happens over the next long while. Getting to see that and have the time period and everything being treated, I would say rather respectfully, having the attention to detail on tons of little different things that most people don't really care about, just the average viewer doesn't really care about. Seeing that, and then also just production-wise, having it be just a really good work of anime. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of times where you'll see... a more niche kind of genre of story get that really good attention to detail, but then they don't get all the money, all the hard work, all the effort put into it. It's more like Berserk 1997. Yep. It had decent animation at parts, and the art was serviceable.
Or rather, it had animation at parts.
and that's something that we can look back on and go, hey, they gave it their shot. Yep. But Vinland Saga as a piece of anime, it had 2D animation, it had 3D animation, it had godlike OST moments. It had an amazing set of OPs and EDs. The voice acting was ridiculously good. The character designs, the art, And then even the fact that they went and apparently did like anime original stuff to blend the pacing a little bit better, like
oh yeah,
whoa,
yeah,
this was good stuff.
I do not understand how Wit was possibly able to make this happen, given that they were also doing part 2 of season 3 for Attack on Titan.
I think it's something that it's definitely where they were working at things at different times.
Oh, definitely.
And it usually takes like 6 to 9 months to animate one of these episodes. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know the details, but I'm guessing it's probably something crazy like that. Yeah. But still, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And yet they did it. Mm-hmm. They did it, and because like I would expect that there would be points where it's like, okay, yeah, it's amazing. But, like, there's, like, these, like, 8 or 12 episodes, like, that are sort of, like, strewn throughout it, sprinkled here and there, that really aren't that great, like, from a production-wise standpoint. But that's what they do to make up for the fact that they really blow our minds on the others. Right. I didn't notice that. Yeah, like there were the times where it didn't need to have crazy action because they were in a village or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it didn't look bad. And like, all of, like, maybe I just am a sucker for any time Aimer or Ame, or however it's pronounced, is used in anime. But like from UBW to After the Rain, and clearly apparently she likes working with Studio Wit because then oh man, that ED, like there's just something about this show, and I don't when I think about it, one of the things that I try and figure out is, when is the next time that we're probably going to get something like this, right? Like if you not Vinland Saga
like
specifically.
Intro, no, but I know what you're saying, but like specifically an intro new anime that comes out, and it just
that'll hit these beats this well,
right? But it's like it's prime across all vectors,
right?
And then when it hits like its crescendo and big moments, it goes above and beyond.
Yep.
I think that we will get those more and more often, actually. I feel like because of the inundation of like anime in the current mainstream like market, we have so much anime coming out right now that I would say, if anything, studios are getting more and more opportunities to adapt these fantastic manga. I think of Made in Abyss as the other recent kind of Vinland Saga equivalent, I would say, of a new show that came out rather recently that has that fantasy, world building, epic kind of scale, brilliant characters, and just hits all the beats really well. I would say Made in Abyss is a completely different style of Vinland Saga.
Definitely, because it's a fantasy,
right. And in some ways, I would say Vinland Saga is just way better than Made in Abyss, actually. But Made in Abyss specifically for me scratches a fantasy itch with regards to the exploration and that whole mystery box stuff there. So I feel like we're getting these shows actually rather frequently, and it's just sometimes they end up on Amazon streaming service and a lot of people don't watch them, which means there's probably more out there, Jacob, that like aired either this year or last year, and we just still haven't seen them yet.
That is a definite possibility.
So I'm really optimistic about the future of anime when things like this happen.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think it's almost proof. That's a great example. People are cheering Beastars at the moment. We haven't seen Beastars yet,
right?
But Beastars is in the Netflix weird localization hell. Yep. So apparently it's really good. But again, we don't know about that yet because, we haven't seen it yet, and it's the trickiness with the distribution and stuff.
One of the things that I like to think about, too, is let's say an anime of this caliber, right? And granted, toned back for the time that it comes out and what the animation would have been like back then, right? But still of this relative caliber, right? Came out, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Back in the ages of 2007.
Yeah. It would have...
There were a bunch that...
I mean, 2007 was a great year, right?
Yeah, 12 years ago, that was...
But it would have absolutely stolen the spotlight. Whereas, like, now, I almost feel like...
So with scaled-down visuals and everything 15 years ago, you think that it would have stolen the show in
maybe not in 2007 specifically.
No, but what you're saying is that if we put this back to any generation, regardless of the production levels, because, you have to scale things back for the times that you're in. You're saying that all the other things still would carry it above and beyond.
Which I agree. Makes sense then, because of course it would, because if this is, the manga started in 2005, and it's getting adapted now and it's this legendary, then of course it would have to be exceptional even for, for its time, right? But just the idea that I get the feeling this one won't be remembered as to the degree that it should, because of just how many amazing anime have been coming out lately.
Oh, so what you're saying is that it's because of there being so much good anime nowadays that great shows like this can end up being
like, we still definitely appreciate them.
Time.
Yeah. But like, but it's like
actually kind of sad.
It's just like, wow, that was a really good anime, but it's not like, oh my god, this was the best thing ever. We need to tell everyone about this because odds are, like this is the thing to watch, right? I still think that it's the thing to watch, right? But the idea that it could be replaced in people's minds because, then something else comes along, even if it's not of the same level, but something that's new and also really good. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I really feel like if we're gonna kind of keep gushing on Vinland Saga, one of the things that kind of works outside the context of the production stuff that we get, because it's 2020 now, and when the show came out in 2019, there's so much good stuff available, and a fantastic studio to adapt it and give it its just give it what it deserves here. There was so much beauty in the writing and the characters. That I feel like this story is one of those ones that will end up being a timeless classic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel like when you think about Vinland Saga, now we haven't seen really that many medieval anime.
Yeah.
But think about the anime that you've seen. And what anime do you put in the same kind of bracket umbrella as Vinland Saga?
Right, for like being a similar kind of show?
Yeah.
Berserk comes to mind, but even then the anime adaptations are not the best.
But yeah,
it's like, I really would have to go towards live action stuff. I would have to think of things like Game of Thrones or Vikings or whatever.
It's got a Western focus on history and lore and legendary heroes from the past, which is very rare for Japan, one, but two, it's actually like got all the pieces necessary to be a good, I would say, cult kind of classic in terms of what kind of community could spring up around it.
Sure. Yes.
A lot of the themes surrounding the story are ones that would provoke, I would say, great amounts of discussion. And even just a single character from Vinland Saga could spark, I would say, a huge following community-wise around them, analyzing them. Askeladd being this main character in focus here, being probably one of the best written antagonists.
Well, and
technically speaking, he is an antagonist, Jacob. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you're saying, but he is probably one of the best written antagonists I've seen in a long time. And surprisingly, what they did with Thorfinn across the whole season also put him up there into brilliant territory for how they deftly avoided so many tropes of the anger, revenge story character.
Mind if I play devil's advocate a little bit? So
why?
So with
what's the big thing you're trying to get at?
With the whole idea of, I think this is one of the aspects about Askeladd in particular that makes him so brilliant.
Okay, sure.
With him being an antagonist. Now, an antagonist is someone that is in opposition of
towards
the protagonist.
Right. Yes. Which is...
Yeah. And so in the sense that Askeladd is an antagonist, it is usually almost completely just with regards to the fact that he killed his father.
Yes, that's literally it.
Right.
Yes.
But through a large portion of the story, Thorfinn is actually helping Askeladd.
Because he wants to kill him.
Right.
Right, that's the brilliance of it.
No, right. Yes. but it's this wonderful way to have someone that is the enemy of the main character, while not being the enemy of the story.
Well, okay, hold on. This is a murdering. No morals.
Who cares about morality?
No. I know, but he is not a good person.
Oh, definitely not. No, I'm not saying that at all.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that as far as his merits towards making him a protagonist.
Well, protagonist and good person are different things.
No, I know. But in terms of his protagonist bit, it is localized within the backstory, specifically with regards to his father, who he then basically takes the mantle of the chosen one who will save England, and essentially dies to pass that on to Canute. So he has that element of a protagonist there.
But even before we get into that, like because that stuff is way later at the end, right? When it's pretty when the relationship between Thorfinn and Askeladd is pretty solid. But even earlier, he almost seems to take the role of like the anti-hero, except he's not. In some cases, he's doing heroic things, but not even really. It's that he has his own thing that he's after, and he's this chaotic, neutral, not quite villain protagonist, because he's not a villain per se.
Yeah. But I like the idea of us getting into breaking down what actually is an antagonist, and I would say you could go with he is the protagonist of his own story because he has to be. But I reject the idea of him being an anti-hero. I love because
he doesn't fully fit into that because that's a person that is doing the heroic things, whereas it's just he's a mercenary. He's doing his thing. He's making money. Right.
He's trying to get power. Not a hero. He is
definitely not.
He is definitely a complicated and well-written antagonist for a good chunk of the story, and there are parts where you're hard pressed to put him into the box of antagonist because he ends up being the protagonist for the story. Once, I would say, especially once he has the conversation with Thorfinn in the snow after just beating him in the duel. And then the story kind of diverges, and you start to realize, they're ending Askeladd's story.
For me, Askeladd stopped being an antagonist at episode 6.
Which was that?
That was basically once Thorfinn had accepted that he was part of his crew.
Oh, okay.
Even though there was still the thing of him wanting to kill him, because in my mind, the whole thing with the snow, that scene, why it's so powerful, is that it wasn't that was the turning point for Askeladd not being an antagonist anymore. That was Thorfinn waking up to the fact that he wasn't an antagonist anymore, right? All the reasons for why he hated Askeladd were, legit. He killed his dad,
right?
But they were things that he was the one keeping them burning, right? It wasn't Askeladd, right? That was all something on Thorfinn, and he had to deal with that because that's not a good road to walk, right? It might have been okay for a little while, but eventually realizes just how empty he is. And because Askeladd for so much of the story is a mentor for Thorfinn, right?
Thorfinn is not willingly receiving really any of his teachings, though.
But I think that's one of the things that I love about it so much, is because maybe it's because Askeladd doesn't immediately conform to any preconceived singular role within a grand narrative, right? Because he's in so many that would seem to be contradictory, right? He's antagonist and he's mentor. He's father and he's killer of father, right? You know, it's all of those things put together, and
it is doing a disservice, obviously, to his character to say that he's only an antagonist. But I would say that if you had to put him into a specific role, the primary one is antagonist because of Thorfinn as a character, less so than Askeladd as a character. To the protagonist, there is only one enemy, and the whole story is really about Thorfinn listening and finally accepting what Thor's taught him, which is that you have no enemies. You don't have any. So at the final scene, when he's holding Askeladd dying in his arms, he realizes he doesn't want him to die, not just because he wanted to kill him, but because he really wants this man to live. He's actually like, his heart is breaking that this man who he cares about is dying. He realizes that he has no enemies. So right up until that point, Thorfinn in some ways chose Askeladd to be his antagonist.
Right, when maybe the entire time he was more of a mentor, but
maybe,
But Thorfinn, as the brash student, was not, learning.
Right, and also, someone who just uses him because it's,
Oh, useful. Sure, yeah.
So he's not actually not actually really caring about Thorfinn's development individually.
Well, you don't have to care about the person in order to be teaching them.
Sure, but I would say that like his it's a utility thing for the purpose of Askeladd's growth, rather than Thorfinn's. But it's that's the thing. I think that you could take a whole section of the community based around Askeladd and have tons of people debating all kinds of different aspects of his character.
12 different people, each with a different opinion, right? And that's one of the ways that you know that you have something that's gold.
Yeah.
Because it's not so clear cut.
Yeah, so antagonist to Thorfinn, but not an antagonist to the story. Yeah, but that's not the definition of an antagonist. An antagonist is never an antagonist to the story. That's not the definition of an antagonist. They're antagonist. If I can go into the definition bit there, it's probably why it frustrates me to kind of admit that, but antagonist is the a person who is actively opposed or is hostile to someone or something, an adversary,
right?
And in this case, that would be if
but they're allies for so long,
I guess define ally.
Well, it's an uncomfortable alliance. It's an alliance where they, it's temporary and it's going to end with me killing you, kind of a thing. But they're still working together. And that's one of the things that I feel makes it so juicy. Because if it was something like say to compare it to like the Golden Age arc in Berserk, right? Because in that situation, you also have a protagonist that is not the one that's actually the mover and shaker of the story, right? Griffith is the one leading the Band of the Hawk. Askeladd is the one leading his mercenary band, right?
Sure.
And Thorfinn is someone that's very useful and definitely achieves a lot of the objectives on behalf of Askeladd or Guts on behalf of Griffith.
Yeah.
But it's still something where they're the one calling the shots, right? And because of that, they're moving in the same direction, right? And there might be things where they're grumpy, they're whatever, I don't like you, right?
Sure.
But it's that level of like pop that it brings to it that makes it so wonderful for me. Because in with something like say Berserk, I feel like the dynamic between Guts and Griffith really started to take off once Guts started to question, what is it I want?
Yeah.
Right.
What am I doing here?
Yeah. What are any of us doing here? Whereas with Thorfinn, because they set it up so strongly from the very beginning, like all of their interactions, just ooze tension, right?
Yeah.
Because how could they not? He killed Mufasa. Yeah. Like, what kind of sick genius watched The Lion King and thought, what if Scar was like the mentor that Simba didn't like? Like, what would it take for them to work together on something? Like,
it's really good. I love in some ways like Askeladd being the kind of the shoo-in for the antagonist is in some ways like just wrong, but specifically with regards to Thorfinn being the main character, which also is kind of wrong for some part of the story as well, is kind of why I'm harping on this aspect of the antagonist bit. Because if you think of this also within the context of it being a full season and it's a closed narrative, meaning that whenever we get a season 2, which hope we will, they are not going to like focus the story in this way at all. Like, it has to go to Thorfinn first. It has to go to Thorfinn because he is
the main character.
He's the main character for the most part, But in this prologue, they utilize the ability that this is something where he is the perspective character for the majority of it. Mm-hmm. But it's a saga, so we get to shift perspective around a little bit and in some ways tell this story a lot like a history book where we're not really bound by the limits of a main character, a first person general perspective, or maybe some limited third person perspective. We jump around. We have a narrator. We have this guy Askeladd, who I think when you look back at the whole thing, you might even say he's kind of the main character too.
Definitely.
Of this prologue.
Oh yeah.
I would say that it's I cannot deny someone who makes that claim. I do not have enough grounds to stand on to make the claim that Askeladd is the...
Yeah, he has more main character juice than Thorfinn if you add it all up from the season.
Right. He's literally the chosen one, and he had to die. It was a brilliant way to usher in Canute, a new era, and have Thorfinn essentially have to come through the full, bloody, painful struggle of accepting what Thor's told him all those years ago.
And what I love about it, because that is the resolution to Thorfinn's arc in the season. What else?
I was just going to say I could still see a very interesting take on how Askeladd is still the antagonist, though. If there is an antagonist in the story, just because you take things back to how the story started and how the antagonist usually is the character that has the most active role in bringing chaos into the environment, by which the protagonist basically kickstarts the hero's journey for them.
Sure.
It's usually pretty easy to do that there. And I would say, if you wanted to get kind of really deep into this here, the actual antagonists are the Danes, the roving barbarians. Just this time period of bands moving around just slaughtering people. That is the antagonistic force in this story. It's what kickstarts Askeladd's story. It kickstarts Thorfinn's story. It moves everything.
There was something I can't remember where I read this. It might be like Joseph Campbell stuff, but it's the idea that most stories can be boiled down to either man versus man, man versus God, man versus nature, or man versus himself.
Yeah.
And I
think
feel
that's
like
Joseph Campbell. Yeah. Hero with 1,000 Faces.
And in the case of Askeladd, he seems to be the one that's man against man.
Right.
Canute is man against man with a dose of man against God.
Man against God,
right? A very strong dose of that. And Thorfinn is man against himself.
And against himself.
Yes.
I'd say it's both.
But his realization, I would say, over the course of the story, is that you don't have any enemies.
Right.
You're not in a man against man story.
Right.
You're in a man against yourself.
Yep.
That's the way of the true warrior.
Right.
Right. And then he finally realizes that and he drops the dagger. Right.
Right. So you could say, I love that we're trying to just find the antagonist here and we can end up putting it onto everyone. Thorfinn is his own antagonist then.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's the boy Thorfinn has to fight against adult Thorfinn.
Mm-hmm.
That is that is the antagonist.
Kill the boy that the man may live.
Yeah.
And you could also say that that the state of the characters and the roles they play in the story is dynamic. It changes over time, right? In the beginning, Askeladd's totally the antagonist, right? And Thor's is the protagonist, right? And then suddenly the antagonist wins. Askeladd kills Thor's. There you go. Now suddenly we've got a new protagonist. Thorfinn sees that, right? And all this stuff happens. And he even had this is one of the things that I absolutely love. They did the whole mentor dies thing. Right?
Yes.
And they did it so well. That has been done so many times, so badly. It's a horse that's been beaten to death and then some in just storytelling in general, right? Especially in any kind of medieval / fantasy setting.
Yes.
Good God.
It's awfully overused.
It is awfully overused.
And here we got it done multiple times.
Well, yeah, multiple times.
No,
twice for Thorfinn.
Twice for Thorfinn.
But multiple times for the others.
Other characters.
And what's great about this is that then's basically taking the hero's journey and doing the whole descent into chaos and all that stuff and the death of the mentor and everything. But it's doing it twice as a coming full circle element, which is another part of the hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that Thorfinn realizes as Askeladd is dying that he still hasn't learned the lesson from Thor's, which he also realized earlier with Askeladd, throwing it in his face and everything. And then
quickly rejected it.
Right. And then that's when he finally is able to accept it, right? That's when he finally beats himself. And I just think that's amazing. Oh, and then also we have that paralleled with Thorfinn and Canute.
Yep.
Like what? Like if you look at the number of parental relationships in this story, it's ridiculous.
It's actually insane.
Absolutely ridiculous.
There's so many times where Thorfinn has someone trying to be a father figure to him. And it's not even just the main characters. There are so many people trying to give Thorfinn that shot at family again. Do you remember the side character family little bit that picked him up and they couldn't understand the way he spoke?
Yep.
And then he betrayed their trust and
they died.
Let them all die.
Yeah.
That was a thematic representation of what Thorfinn's journey would be like. Is that he was having family, fatherhood, family, what have you, a loving structure of connection via people offered to him over and over and over again through imperfect people.
Yep.
Mind you,
a lot
of these people weren't the best people.
Yep.
But they still gave it their effort and they initiated towards him over and over again, especially the ones that were the father figures.
Right. And then because of his choices, it doesn't end well.
Yep.
Like every single one ends because of his choices. We don't know yet whether the whole thing with Leif, whether that'll fall through or not. I hope it doesn't because I want him to go. I think that makes sense for Thorfinn as a character.
I think it worked.
Yeah, I think it worked too. But if
Askeladd's final words to Thorfinn basically affirmed the whole thing as well.
But before that, when Leif saw him the first time, Thorfinn's choice, right? The family, Thorfinn's choice. Askeladd, Thorfinn's choice. Thorfinn's choice. He didn't realize that was that's what would happen, but it was because of him.
Yeah. There's so many times where Thorfinn, you get to kind of look at him and you realize that the character is shaped around, I would say, vows. There's this aspect of Thorfinn that is shaped around the idea of the vow. And there's a lot of characters in fiction and in I would say kind of this, how would I say this? There's these more ancient times or what have you. There was this idea of like, I swear to myself a certain thing. And it's basically a character cursing themselves until they accomplish the goal. And then they allow themselves to receive the blessing. And Thorfinn does this as a young child.
Right.
And I don't think he fully realized that he was doing this. But it was so beautiful to watch Askeladd, who realized this a long time ago. But just smacks him upside the face essentially with his words when they're talking to each other there. I think if I look back on the show, there's a lot of individual episodes that are quite good. They are quite good. And weirdly enough, I think most of the hype episodes are not my favorite episodes. My favorite episodes, I think, are the ones where we have really impactful moments with Askeladd usually talking. And one of them is him talking about the Age of Twilight.
Yes, that
was probably one of my favorite episodes. The other one is him talking to Thorfinn. That one was fantastically good. And the other one, I don't even know if this is really Askeladd talking as much, but it's the village where Askeladd kills all the people there, and we got that unique insight into how the people there believed in God and what kind of weird aspects of their religion there were. But
yeah, my favorite episodes, weirdly enough, have almost nothing to do with the plot. Yeah, they're things like that episode with the village. They're the episodes like with Thorfinn, in the family. The one, or no, yeah, the one with the village was the same one where the brothers and the priest are talking.
Yes, I believe
yeah,
it was.
that was the same one.
Yep.
Like those kinds of things, because it's those quiet moments amidst the intensity, those breathing moments that give the intense moments meaning. Right? Because if it's just action, there are a billion anime out there and stories out there that can do action, right?
Yeah.
And that won't stand the test of time. There will be someone that comes around and does it better, flashier, whatever, right?
Attack on Titan is a great example of where do you remember when season 1 happened and people freaked out about ODM gear? Like, do you remember just the amount of excitement there was over this unique style of action?
Yeah.
And then season 2 happened and people were like, I don't get it. There's no action. You know, like...
Yeah. So, what was I saying?
Sorry.
That the in the same reason that, like, MHA, while it doesn't have, like, great fights from the standpoint of what is technically happening, they look very pretty and stuff, but from what's technically happening, they're very simple and straightforward.
Right.
And yet they have this massive impact because it's about what it represents. It's about how we become attached to these characters so that when the fights happen, we know that these are what need to happen, right? They're the rawest and most and innermost aspects of these characters being laid bare and put to the test, right?
Yep.
We have that here, but in a cold dog world like we have here, how does that properly get expressed, right? Because it's not some crazy hero and villain, trying to destroy each other in the final punch that defeats them. It's, all right, we're trying to survive. A bunch of us are murderous assholes, right? But we're still people. We try and figure things out.
So we try to figure things out sometimes. And that's
even if we don't do a good job of it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, there's opportunities where people try to figure things out and they fail. They don't actually figure it out. This is one of the moments in the story that I would say was handled absolutely beautifully. Is there was a lot of moments where characters make mistakes in Vinland Saga.
Sure.
And I mean, like, really, like, blunderous mistakes.
Yeah.
And there is almost always a consequence and a cost to those mistakes.
Yes.
And a lot of it ends in death. A lot of it. It might not be specifically for the person that made the mistake.
Sure. Or a literal physical death.
Well, no. I mean a lot of literal physical death. The ones that I'm going to be specifically talking about are the ones where it's literally death that's happening and ends with some of the most beautiful scenes in Vinland Saga. I think back to the Ragnar death, and if you think back on, like, a lot of the characters, you can go, oh yeah, Ragnar, he was really good. I really liked him. But do you remember how he died when he was talking with Askeladd?
Yeah.
That moment where he ends up telling us and, Askeladd where his actual, like, motivations and passions and dreams lied.
Yep.
We had the most characterization for him than we ever really had in the rest of his screen time at this moment where he realized he was about to die. And I think this show did this over and over and over again. And this isn't really a new style of writing or what have you, to have that sudden backstory, that sudden characterization right before they die. But there were these moments of beauty where we would see this added aspect of humanity to them that we didn't necessarily get focused on before this. I think of Bjorn's death as well.
Oh, yeah.
If you think about Bjorn as a character, he could have completely been forgettable. Like, he had every reason to be a simple meathead.
Yeah. I am the guy that eats the mushroom and goes crazy and smashes everything.
Yeah, and I am the right-hand man that doesn't have a lot of characterization for Askeladd.
Right.
But no, actually, we're going to have a moment where we realize that, oh my god, wait, the main thing with Bjorn, was that we have this cold-hearted killer, Askeladd, who really hates the Danes. And I mean, he unnaturally hates the Danes.
Oh, yeah.
We got to see that at the finale, we got to see what it looks like.
There was part of that was hamming it up for the sake of the performance.
But a lot of it came from a real place.
Daddy needs to express some rage.
Yeah, he's going to express some rage.
Yeah.
And when you realize that Bjorn was, in some ways, the greatest friendship relationship despite being a Dane that Askeladd had.
Yep.
And Askeladd loved him so much that he was willing to give him this death, and he was willing to like accept that, and still also held probably that little tinge of hatred because he can't get over the fact that he was a murderous, rampaging barbarian, you know?
Well,
everything that he hates about the Danes, basically. It's just...
One of the things that I loved about Bjorn, and specifically leading up to his death and everything, is that everyone else turned on Askeladd. Right. Bjorn didn't. Bjorn could have. He had every reason to. The only reason that he seemed to not turn on him was that Askeladd was still depending on him to the very end. Right? So it was more of like, for the sake of the trust that you're showing me, I'll stick with you.
I will reward that with my loyalty.
And my life.
And his life.
And my life.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, like, if Bjorn had turned on Askeladd would have been done. Right? He would have been done. All the other people in the mercenary band probably would have been okay, because Bjorn would have actually known what he was doing, right? Like, Bjorn could have had a pretty good life if he had turned on Askeladd.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that thinks that Askeladd's whole, like, the way that he looked at Bjorn changed because of that. That when that was all happening, he was using Bjorn, right? And he weighed the odds, right? And he figured that if he continued to depend on Bjorn, tell him just enough and everything and in the right way, that Bjorn would continue to serve him.
Right.
And that things would turn out all right.
Yeah.
But he still hated him. Right? I don't think he saw him as a friend. Not until after that. And then it's like, oh, wow, you really started to see everything about me.
Yeah.
And you still chose me.
Yeah, I think that Askeladd he chose his future a long time ago. Yeah. He chose his path, essentially. Bjorn had so many times where he was trying to nudge himself onto that path and be like, take me with you, you know? And chat was bringing that up, saying that if you go back and rewatch, you can see Bjorn spend the entire series trying to get close to Askeladd.
Yep.
I definitely didn't see it across the entire series because I wasn't looking that closely, probably, but there were multiple points where I'm like, oh, look at that. Look at that. That's not him trying to betray him. And I didn't really even realize that at the time, because I think a couple times I was thinking about it as if he was like, he's testing Askeladd's defenses. And then when we finally had him say, like, I always wanted to be your friend, and recontextualize that whole journey that he was making he was making there to be Askeladd's friend, because he knew Askeladd was the one that walks alone. Like he doesn't have anyone that he really cares about. He lost the only person really that he ever cared about. He now cares about a country. He doesn't care about the current occupying people there. If anything, he might care for the people of Wales, but there's no individual that he really cared about other than maybe Thorfinn as it moved towards the end there, because he's the son of Thor. He's the son of the man that maybe taught him quite a bit about you know, the fact that there is a possibility to find someone that great out there that can save this country.
And he did see a lot of himself in Thorfinn. You know, like, it's shockingly similar situation.
Shockingly similar. Yeah. So yeah, characters of Vinland Saga are really good. And when I say really good, I mean, we got in 24 episodes characterization and character development for more characters than I would say even some of the...
than most anime would get for their main character in the same amount of time.
Right. You know what's weird? When I think about shows that have that seinen quality character writing... The other show that comes to mind is Monster.
Oh.
When I think about Monster, I think about quality character writing. It wasn't overtly dramatic.
No.
It just did its characterization well and was consistent with it.
Yes.
It had moments where there were surprises as characters made choices that you were like, whoa, really? But it doubled down on them. I would say that Vinland Saga holds up as, in some ways, character writing wise, not plot, you know, overarching narrative wise, like a screenplay or what have you, but even better than Monster. Like some of the stuff we got.
Yeah, I think so too.
In this first season.
Yep. Like, I would say one of the things where it is also very similar to Monster, not just character writing, but themes.
Sure.
One of the best things about Monster wasn't really its characters, but more of how closely it stayed to its themes. It didn't go off theme, really.
Yeah.
So you knew exactly what you were getting, what the show was about, and when an episode came along that didn't progress anything in the plot or even potentially with a particular character, right? Because they were all side characters that were introduced that episode.
Yeah.
It was on theme. And in the same way, with Vinland Saga, there might be whole episodes that have, like the village episode. Did Thorfinn say more than one line in that whole episode? Right? Like, no, he was barely even there.
Yeah.
Askeladd, Thor's, all of them, they weren't even in the episode with the family, right? Thorfinn wasn't doing anything. That was one mission. That's an awful long time to spend on basically just him doing some, hide and go seek with the army, right?
Right.
While on a mission.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful decision to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of times where when we think about stories that hit us in deep ways, it usually requires the story to go on a journey where at least one of the themes is carried, I would say, in a dual capacity. So you have Thorfinn in that he carries the theme of loss. He carries this aspect of someone that had the best life. He was free.
Yeah.
They lived in Iceland. They were so far removed from the conflicts and the trials and even some ways like some of the darker aspects of the society that they lived in, like slavery.
Sure.
Like it was a very near utopia for what they had there. It was harsh environment and what have you.
But they made it work, and
they were a family and they had each other. If you think about that aspect of loss, take Askeladd's loss. He never had any of those great things. He was born to a slave woman that was barely able to, stay alive and provide for herself. He ends up having the other story of loss where instead of it being about how he, lost something great, it's that he came from loss and then was told these great stories and was filled his head with wonder. And we called back to one of your favorite lines from Black Panther,
Oh, yeah.
Imagine that, a kid growing up in...
A kid in Brooklyn growing up believing in fairy tales.
Right.
Yeah.
This is that, but in the medieval Viking kind of Danish setting there.
Yep.
And then he ends up gaining all of that.
Oh, yeah.
But because he came from that loss drags him with him into this area where he could have probably had a wonderful esque life.
Yep.
With his newfound brothers. And instead, he kills him. He connives his way to make it even seem like it wasn't even him that did it.
Right.
He takes and in some way systematically removes all the connections that he had because he's going on this path where loss is going to be his theme. He's doomed himself to die alone, almost. Yeah. And Thorfinn was literally on the same path here. There's so many things in Vinland Saga where you can just look at a specific theme and how multiple characters embody that theme with a slight deviation on certain aspects. Sure. And then they are going towards the same place, but because they're different characters, they
Right, they have their own spin on it and things like that, and that takes them into very different places, but it's still the same question, it's still the same thing that's eating them up inside.
Yes.
They just might do different things about it.
And they literally did the Kenny line in this with the everyone is a slave to something.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember, who was it that said that? Askeladd?
I think so.
I think it was Askeladd that said that, right, chat?
Yep.
Because when they said that in the episode, I was like, hey, Kenny, what are you doing here?
Well, and given the fact that this manga started in 2005, odds are that line from Kenny is, it doesn't have to be. I'm sure there's some philosopher that said that in some more common situation or whatever. But it could be an Askeladd reference.
Right, that's true.
And Askeladd does fit that kind of character type for Levi.
Sure, sure he does. Yeah, definitely potential inspiration from Vinland that Isayama took. That makes perfect sense. It's a great line. So I could definitely see people independently coming to that conclusion.
Oh, yeah.
Even if they worded it slightly differently.
Right.
in a slightly different way. So yeah, God, that's maybe the thing that elevates my desire to want to share this story with people, is that the individual characters that I really personally like I personally really enjoyed certain aspects of this character. It is the entire journey that gives me the desire to share it with people. It is not like a specific moment or a specific character or a specific scene, and that is, I just feel like it's the example of good writing that incorporates everything and it's planned out, and you see it plotted well. Well. Yeah. Ugh. I love that we've gone through so much of this podcast, and I've specifically avoided talking about Canute and gushing about him as much. Apparently, the people in the Discord have been memeing to death how much I have a hard on for Canute and his story there.
Yep, I said can nut for a reason. Yeah.
But should we get into some of our favorite individual personal little things where they were either moments or characters or specific things?
Well, this isn't like a
out from the grand narrative stuff.
This isn't so much a specific moment, but I love how Vinland Saga balances being a saga and being a personal tale.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times you talk about how you love ensemble casts, right? And I talk about how I love the intimate small casts.
Right.
Vinland Saga, I feel like, is a perfect balance where it does both. Right?
Yeah,
and it alternates between the two. There are the times where it's in saga mode. It's kings and gods change the odds, right?
Yeah.
And then it's characters just sitting down and having a talk. Whether that's Thorfinn and some village girl, or Thorfinn and Askeladd, or a couple of brothers and a priest, right? And yet, because it's a historical fiction, when they do things like having the brothers and the priest talking about love and God and all that stuff, it's not just a conversation. It's also something that is giving historical context and everything to this gritty, dark world.
Yeah.
Because there were plenty of stories that want to be edgy or be like, oh, yes, in this underbelly, whatever, blah, 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 all this stuff happening. Yes. And that's great. There's a reason that's so good. But because this is a historical fiction, it's not arbitrary that that's the way it is.
Yes.
It is. Yes. It has this idea of being educational, because that is how things would be back then. And then it's also paying homage to some of the great, cultures out there, by people being like, when, say Christianity is all spreading around and people are like, huh? What? Why would that seems weird. Wait, but what's...
And then there's all these weird different takes already in its early stages.
Right.
At this point.
But then, them trying to talk about love. I love my brother. I'll watch his back, when in a fight or something. And it's like, no, I'm talking about something else. And they're like, I don't get it. How could that possibly be better than gold and women, and those kinds of things, it makes it mean more, right? Because you could, if you wanted to do something like this and have it be some construct in a fictional world, fictional setting, fictional, like gods and circumstance and everything,
right?
That would be great too. And I would hope that more stories would have that. But the fact that this is historical, it just adds that extra bit of depth to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where you could look at a specific character's take on an aspect of the culture at the time, and then go, oh, I can plot out in my mind how that take would be taken, how someone would arrive at that perspective. And yet there were multiple times in the story where I realized that this is something that the creator of this work likes to do. They love to actually have the characters be introspective and talk about the things that they believe and or are questioning with regards to their beliefs. And this is something that I don't see in a lot of stories, because pacing wise, it's quite slow to have people talk about worldviews, belief systems, and all that. It takes time. One, you have to make it a dialogue in some ways to make it even remotely entertaining.
It's a monologue.
Okay. if it's a monologue, you at the very least need to have it be the culmination of a character's development.
Right. So there's a reason that they're talking about it. Yeah.
And in some ways also Guts at the tree with the snow and all that.
Yeah.
But they didn't actually talk that much.
They spoke with their swords.
Yeah. But when Canute and the priest had their talk about this world and about the insanity of it all, about the hypocrisy / contradiction of faith and God, and then what love is and how that fits into this life and what is our purpose within all this, I felt like that was one of the most ingenious ways to have a character who was very snail crawl, like going through their development. And even though it was obvious what kind of development was happening, they needed to have some kind of accelerant for Canute in order to have him actually resolve his story. Otherwise, he would just probably have ended up dead somewhere, just kind of forgotten.
Yep. Or just hold up in some, castle.
And does it feel a little bit like sudden that all this happened? I saw someone mentioning this in chat, so I wanted to bring it up here. Yeah, a little bit. It feels a little bit sudden. But when you look at the way that the priest's conversation and in some ways his monologue fits into the story of Canute, and then we actually have them both going back and forth on this, and that was probably one of my favorite character development episodes of the anime in a long time. There have been a lot that have happened where a recent one is what happened with Sengoku Nadeko in
Monogatari.
Monogatari.
Yep.
It was an example of, I would say, something like that, where if you were looking really closely, you could see this was always there. It was always there right underneath the surface. So the sudden turn is actually something that was plotted quite well along. And Canute went from a literal femboy to Reinhard von Lohengrin in an episode.
Well, but
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, go for it.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
You were first.
So, one of the things that is very important is that it was not something where talking about his technical ability, right? It wasn't that he gained some new, capabilities that he didn't have before, but it was that an issue with him as a person not having the confidence and the inner reserves of
resolve in his beliefs,
of resolve and strength in belief and everything in order to actually do it. Right. And because he's young, I would say it actually works better.
It works way better.
Because his nihilistic philosophizing and whatnot, I would say it's not that difficult to poke a bunch of holes in it, right? Because that's a conversation that most people, I would say, have at some point in their lives, and then there are certain conundrums with that and certain empty spaces that you need to fill in. But because he's young, because he's brash, and because he's emotionally distraught because his father essentially just died, he has to grab onto something quickly so he doesn't lose himself. And the fact that he didn't lose himself, that might be the most unrealistic bit of it,
or it's the most surprising thing based on the characterization we got previously.
Right. Yeah. But it could definitely happen.
Oh, it definitely could happen.
And that is the kind of thing that separates the people that make history from the people that don't.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So, that being said, I had a little bit of meta knowledge regarding that, I had, okay, so, I had the tonal dissonance in my mind, so I was probably set up to really like whenever Canute did turn, almost no matter what, because I was looking at this boy, and I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't fit in my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, it's Griffith, got it.
Yeah.
But it's still not Griffith. It's different.
Well, yeah.
So I'm like, Caleb, you're gonna look for everything. So if anything, I almost feel bad for anyone watching the discussions over again and realizing how much I would harp on every little bit of Canute, development or anything, because I was always like, where is it? When is it? It's gonna happen. I just know because this is not the character that he grows up to being.
Yeah.
So
it was pretty obvious. But to your credit, the show made it very obvious as well.
It did.
His introduction, and the first thing is always the most important thing, is here is a mysterious helmeted figure that is going to lead armies. Wait a minute, they don't have any spine. What's wrong with them, right? Okay, clearly that's where they're going to grow, right? Especially given how much Askeladd was like, yes, this guy's important. You know, even though everyone's like, oh, what are you talking about?
I loved how much Mama Ragnar essentially would end up just kind of covering for baby Canute. But then you'd have these moments there where Thorfinn and Canute would like kind of bump into each other. And it'd be this moment where Canute would be like, what is your damage? Like looking at Canute, like Canute would look at Thorfinn and be like, bro, like, who dropped you as a baby? And Thorfinn's like,
justice, revenge.
No, you don't even understand my backstory, man. And
that's a pretty hardcore origin story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in some ways, I felt like Thorfinn just being around Canute by osmosis realized, oh yeah, kids can grow up to become this. That is a thing that happens. Right. Because we're basically the same age, and yet it's like, yeah, sounds like college humor Batman. I mean, yeah, sure, exactly. Remy's big post here. I like how the priest basically reached the same conciseness,
maybe conclusions,
as Canute, but gave up. Yeah, probably. Most likely why he drinks as well, and makes Canute realize that point of view too. But then Canute shocks the priest by, instead of waiting for some change, he takes it in his own hands to bring change. Yeah, one of the things that is very much an exciting thing is when a character decides to care a lot. What?
From Amachu, Canute, Thorfinn. Why would you say that name?
Amachu, I love your commentary. It's amazing. I can't wait for the Vinland abridged.
Oh, that would be amazing. That'd be wonderful.
Jacob, we should like specifically design voices now. When they hold out casting calls for the Vinland Saga abridged, we'll like have them all ready, and we'll be like, here you go. I've got 5 voices now. Pick and choose. Which one do you want? And maybe we end up literally being the brothers. Wouldn't that be funny? Like,
okay, that would be kind of funny.
But anyway, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, hold on now. Abridges take a lot of time and effort. I thought you were gonna be like, let's make the Vinland Saga abridged. I was
no.
Party voice for Ragnar.
No, but I wanted to go back to the idea of a character that cares. One of the things that's like obvious when they tell you like kind of that Canute's kind of in the story, that he's going to be important, is that you go, but he doesn't seem to care. He seems to have kind of a seems to kind of have a passive role in the story. How does he take an active role in the story without something kind of forcing it to happen to him? And then the OP changes, and we see Ragnar disappearing into the snow, and it's like, well, okay, I guess we now know.
Yeah.
Even though it was kind of obvious also that Ragnar would have to die because...
just from a meta perspective, we've seen it before.
We've seen it before. It's another father-son relationship by not blood. It's
And also, we figured that it was going to happen to Askeladd at some point because we could see that they were setting that up with Thorfinn, right? So, yeah, then here's
we just didn't think it would happen that quickly, if anything.
Well,
up until it started getting really obvious towards like the 20s in the episode.
Yeah. Well,
but it was around episode like 12 or what have you when he starts talking about the Twilight thing.
We
were like, okay,
this is straight
Askeladd's gonna die.
Well, right. He's straight up doing a, I won't be here forever. Right. I hope I can equip you for when I'm gone. Right.
Or like equip this world in some ways.
Yeah.
Change this world enough by the time I'm gone.
But then Ragnar and Canute come along, and Ragnar's literally like, let's make some cookies, Canute. Like, I know you're totally gonna end up being some dictator or leader or some mix of the two and doing all kinds of crazy shit, but for now, let's bake cookies. And he's like, yeah, that sounds awesome, right?
That's awesome, Dad. I mean, Ragnar. It's like, All right, we're gonna have to
take him out behind the woodshed.
Take him out behind the woodshed and triple tap.
Yep.
I don't want him to be recognized.
Blam, blam. One more for luck. Blam. Yeah.
It feels so bad too, because when you think about Canute's character, he was one that threatened in some ways to shake up the story so much that you kind of, in some ways, didn't want him to, like, be too much thrust into the main stage. Like,
sure, yeah.
You're kind of like, hey, wait, there's this really cool Askeladd-Thorfinn dynamic going on.
Right, exactly.
Who's this blonde boy stealing all the screen time
I mean,
here?
we've been getting great, like, intimate moments.
Yeah.
We don't need to go super big scales, even though that is really cool when it happens. You know, yeah.
And then, when wait, what?
Oh, just some comments on Askeladd, like, so...
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Amaju, my name is Lucius Artorius Castus Meridius Decimus Skywalker, father to a kid whose father I killed, son of a father I murdered, commander of the Danish legions, and true ruler of England, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. And even better, from Nabzum, Askeladd died as he lived, killing someone's father.
Damn it.
Yep, it's great.
But when Canute actually gets quiet moments with, like getting to be introspective himself, I felt like the way that they handled this, in that it wasn't just Ragnar died, he snaps. It was a few episodes after that, when actually things were going really badly for Askeladd and the crew and everything like that this moment happened. This beautiful moment. It felt very much like all the in some ways other spiritual moments in the show. There were a couple other moments where I would say they tapped into the they were either looking up at the stars or
the whole village episode God, especially, or, just
anything like that, or even in some ways Thor's is in some ways like I mean, his name is Thor's. Like, he's meant to be this almost like near divine being.
He's Mufasa. He dies, and then you see him talking to you from the clouds.
Remember who you are, Thorfinn.
Yeah. Thorgon Jin.
Oh, God. Amiju, how do you do it? How are you so good at this? In before, Amiju is just basically like going to like r/Vinland Saga memes or what have you, and it's just like, I'm going to take all these and copy paste.
That's how.
Oh my God. Okay.
But, yeah.
So all in all to say, I think Canute's development was beautiful.
Yep.
It was not my favorite episode of the show, but I would say it was near perfect as far as what they had to do for the character that they gave us.
Also, I gotta say, I know this isn't like, this is such a little thing, right? But it means a lot to me. In a show as gorgeous as Vinland Saga, done by Studio Wit, with the amazing music and everything, and the animation and all of this stuff that just is wonderful.
Yes.
To see the simplest of like technical decisions be made for showing effect of something, Canute doing his like cape toss, or Askeladd just distorting the space around him because he's that angry.
Turns and looks at Thorfinn, and the aura around him starts to glow.
It's so good, because the reason why
anime.
Well, yeah, anime, but the reason that I harp on this is because it's done so much in anime that it's a trope, right? You have someone with the aura, and they start glowing some crazy neon color, right? And the thing is that can be awesome when it has particular build-up and meaning and in the story, and there's a power system or something, so it explains why they're glowing, unless it's just done for like comedic effect, which is what's done a lot more regularly, right? But the thing is that to see it be done with no color in that minimalist sort of simple approach, it made it so much better. Because if they had added any kind of color to it, right? If they had made it be like he was glowing red or purple or something, that would have been awful.
I love that it's such a small detail, but I totally understand, because I also freaked out when it happened.
The devil's in the details. Like it is. And with the Canute thing, it's like, okay, awesome. Why not, right? We don't need to have anything super crazy, it's just he's decided now.
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool.
Yeah, there were multiple character moments where big choices were made, and they would use the medium of anime to its greatest effect. I think of the moment where they would isolate the environments when both Thors and Askeladd died.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it was like there was a spotlight of actual color.
Nothing else.
On that moment there.
Nothing else mattered. And it's the same for the both of them, right?
I mean, and the show didn't need to be like, obvious with pointing out the parallels. Like, it's pretty obvious what's happening here. We've come full circle.
Yep.
He has another father that he's losing.
Yeah.
And will he listen to this one's words?
Oh, and also, let's bring up again that Thorfinn and Canute both had two father figures.
Yep.
One good, one bad, one an actual father, one not, which, okay. But
both die.
The good one first, the bad one later. Like, yeah. Oh, and by the way, both being responsible for their deaths.
Yep.
Like, not directly necessarily.
Not directly, definitely responsible.
But definitely responsible.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, man. What about Thorkell? Okay, Thorkell. Let's talk about Thorkell.
Well, first off, I need to get something off my chest. I'm a bit frustrated that Thorkell wasn't on the Best Girl category for the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. That bothers me. That just bothers me a little bit. Right? Like, I mean, am I the only one?
Yeah. But Thorkell was, in some ways, when I think about it in a meta way, he is a little bit of marketing, I would say, for just this show to be just talked
product
about.
Placement. Yeah.
He's a real person. I will just say this, y'all. I can't anymore because this show is now a thing. But go look up Thorkell the Tall. He's a real person.
Yep.
Who was a monolithic freak of nature. Who actually lived and was someone that helped Canute. So go check that out. It's ridiculously cool that the most anime character in some ways in the show is actually in some ways probably the most historically relevant. Well, not relevant, but in terms of like the reality
is stranger than fiction.
Reality is stranger than fiction.
Maybe he didn't pick up that big ass boulder that he did in the one episode, right? Because that's a bit crazy. But the crazy stuff happens in history. Human beings are terrifying.
There were giants.
There were giants.
Actual giants.
Yep.
It's across tons of cultures, and
it also helps that like most people weren't eating well. So when you had the person that was actually big, they would beat everybody's ass and then get all the good food.
Natural selection was a little bit more unforgiving.
Skewed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, they get all the meat, they get all the stuff, all the protein, and they grow.
Yeah, but
and also no pesticides and all that stuff in the ground, turning all the vegetables.
But I love the fact that Thorkell, who does all the also unrealistic things with regards to physical feats or what have you, like
some of his jumps are pretty crazy.
Like the wielding the logs might have been a bit over the top. The what was the other one? The punching the horse.
It's one of those things where it's like, okay, that stuff was probably done, not necessarily as stylistic as that, right? Like the people carrying the boats, right?
Who knows?
Probably that's a thing.
The boats thing was a thing, but it wasn't that they would carry them. It's that they would roll them over the land with logs, and they would essentially push it.
Oh,
but they wouldn't all lift it up.
Or maybe that they did carry them and it just took way more people. Or they just
didn't run with it.
Yeah, they didn't run with it. They had ropes and all these things to make sure that it actually worked.
But that's the thing. I love that the historical fiction still has the who cares anime. It's cool, but it doesn't ever break the story.
Yeah, throwing a spear and impaling 3 guys, but I don't care. It's cool as fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tossing an axe through 5 guys and a ship's mast or something. Yeah.
I just realized something. There's no such thing as human evolution. Just those few who survived or avoided Thorkell. I refuse to believe the real Thorkell didn't uppercut a horse.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love him telling Canute to stand his ground and telling him that a master should handle his own dog. Oh. That was really good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was good. Okay, so Thorkell was a fantastic addition to the story. His voice actor was having a ball playing him, and I liked the way that they showcased his connection to Thor's.
Oh yeah, that was great.
In some ways, all the characters involved in the story, the main characters, have one degree of severe influence that they got from Thor's.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
1 degree, meaning that there's that connection there.
1 degree, yeah.
1 degree of separation.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So even if they weren't necessarily,
they didn't meet Thor's.
They meet Thor's.
Yeah, I love that. I love that part where the two brothers randomly mention, like, oh yeah, there was some guy that we fought, and like, because Thor's is a nobody to them, right? But there was some guy that we fought that defeated like all of us but he didn't even use a sword and he didn't kill anybody. And the priest is like, wait, what? What? Like, hold on a second. Yeah.
Who is this man?
Yep. But that look on Thorkell's face when Thor tells him he's leaving, and he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand. Mm-hmm. He's like, and he's angry, but he's like, it's a petty kind of anger, right? Like a child that had their favorite toy taken away, and they're just, why?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of characters in this show that I feel like you could devote entire analysis videos to, and you'd have to make them like an hour long.
Oh, sure.
And that's like a lot of those characters are side characters. Mm-hmm. It's just really good. Vinland Saga, if you're somehow here and you haven't watched it, please watch it.
Yeah.
Please, if at the very least, I almost don't care whether or not you watch it, but I'm gonna ask that just if there's any kind of call to action here or anything like that, please talk about it.
Yes, definitely.
Please talk about it.
Don't let this just be another anime that came out in 2019.
Yeah,
because it deserves way more.
It deserves way more.
Yeah, and support it in any way you can, because that'll up the chances of us getting a season 2 by Studio Wit soon.
Yeah, I mean, don't do anything unreasonable, but
yeah,
but
if you can get the Blu-rays when they come out, get it.
I mean, hey, you know what? I actually think we could do. This is something that would be kind of crazy, but it worked with Dragon Prince, and I've done this quite a bit with Netflix.
Dragon Prince.
Yeah, random topic, but there's this animated show on Netflix called The Dragon Prince, and it's quite good. It's not a masterpiece or anything, but it's quite good. But in order to get more seasons, what you sometimes need to do is show Netflix that they really should make sequels for it by engagement, social media presence, and all that other stuff. But all these streaming services things have a submit your what shows would you like to see more of on the platforms.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that we could find something like that for Amazon, and then just spam a bunch of emails to them and be like, "Hey,
yes,
get Vinland Saga season 2."
Thank you, Eric Walt. Haven't you given a thought to what you're going to live for after I'm dead, Thorfinn?
Wow, yeah. So many good lines. So many good lines.
And the thing is, okay, so I feel like that line is something that doesn't just apply to Vinland Saga, because if you think about it, in the same way that everyone's a slave to something, right? How many of us can actually relate to having a super Viking dad that gets killed by another Viking, right? Like, hopefully not many, right? Hopefully. Although it would be cool to have a super Viking dad. But the idea of what are you going to live for after I'm gone?
Yeah.
That's so good. Because
good.
Even if we don't have an actual Askeladd where we're trying to kill somebody, right? Let's hope not. The idea that we have something that is so important to us, but it isn't really that important, it's not really going to last, and it won't really make us happy, right? Yeah. And yet we are so obsessed with it that we pursue it with no end and no thought to what happens afterwards. But what happens if we actually get it or we don't? Maybe it gets, taken from us.
What are you going to do next?
What are you going to do next?
Yep.
And that's important. That's really important. And I really, really, really hope, and I think it's going to happen, that Thorfinn does go to Vinland, because that way he can actually see that. He can ask that question. He can answer that question. He can figure out what he wants to do.
Yep.
And that's something that I feel like is a question that isn't often addressed or answered in our day and age. So, yeah.
Vinland Saga. Share it with your friends.
Yep.
Watch it. Share it. All that good stuff.
Super Viking Jesus Dad. Many rom-coms need to learn that lesson. Yeah. Oh.
Feel no shame about Danes. England changes their phrase. Every father will die along the way. So do me, Thorfinn says. Meanwhile, Thor's is dead. How do you do this, Ameju? That was so good.
That's amazing.
That was so good.
Oh, man.
Okay, yeah, for those of you that are wondering, yeah, Dr. Stone is replacing Vinland Saga. And, but yeah, thank you all for joining us on the podcast here, discussing Vinland Saga.
Yep.
Would love to hear actually from you guys. I'm gonna do a thing actually. Once this stream is over, it's gonna take probably about 5 minutes to do or what have you. I'm gonna make a tweet, and I'm gonna basically have it be a thing of saying like, what was your moment that made you fall in love with Vinland Saga? Like, just basically get a lot of appreciation on social media. And I'll just put a hashtag Vinland Saga or what have you on it, or something like that. And just, I'm going to ask that just everyone just share their favorite moment from Vinland Saga in the bit there.
From the anime specifically?
Yeah. From the anime specifically. That would be really cool.
Literally the intro.
What was it? Prophet something? Survive said the Prophet?
Which one?
The first one. The first one I think is slightly better than the second one.
I think so too, but just the second one is really good. They're both
really good.
Like the fact that the second one, because an opening as good as the first one, and then having it turn into anything else, right? That's something that pretty much sinks me into a mild depression, right? Because it's like it's so good, like that whole question. It's like why? Yeah. But if you're gonna replace it with something, you replace it with the second opening, because that was really good.
Yeah. Survive said the Prophet. Lukanjo. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. So y'all, thank you so much for hanging out with us here. Be sure to leave a follow if you want to stay up to date on all our streams that happen on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Yep.
On Mondays, we do our podcast. We discuss anime and the like. On Tuesdays, we do our One Piece manga read-throughs with voices and acting and handing it up. It's a lot of fun and ridiculousness. So be sure to check that out. And on Thursdays, Jacob, you do gaming.
That's right. And Yakuza 0. We got 24-hour Cinderella karaoke. We got Cabaret Club management. We've got everything. And I'm loving it so much.
And then on Fridays, I'm doing gaming with Nier Automata. I've felt like the game just transcended into masterpiece level with a certain aspect of the story that just happened with me there. Emil, y'all. Oh my god. So this next stream for Nier Automata is going to be ridiculously good.
Okay.
So be sure to check out that.
And also, in case you haven't heard, you probably have, but in case you haven't or you haven't gotten it yet, my sci-fi novel Battle Lines is available for purchase on Amazon, and it's awesome. The link's in the description down below. And actually, Caleb, type in !BL in the chat.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yep. Watch this.
Oh, Jacob, you've been setting up bots?
Yep,
what?
That's right. Thank you, Gooey, for helping walk me through it. Yeah. So you can get the book there. It's pretty cool.
Very cool, Jacob.
Yeah.
This is a genius move. Your next line will be ! BL.
Spread the BL everywhere.
Spread the BL, y'all.
Yep. Do it for BL.
It's a wholesome BL. It's a violent BL. So yeah, sure to check that out, and we'll see you in the next stream. But until then, y'all, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time. All right.
Yes, Caleb, you need to read Comey. You really need to read Comey. Like, oh man. Like, you need to do it. It needs to happen, dude. It needs to happen.
With girlfriend. Eventually, I'll read Comey.
It is literally the most wholesome, adorable thing I have ever witnessed.
I believe you, because I just got chills running up down my spine there for a brief second.
Yeah, I cannot wait to read Volume 4.
Maybe once they've gotten about like 10 volumes or something like that. Then
they have. Well, okay, physical printed. Yeah, not that much. For actual chapters that have been released, it's way further ahead.
Right, but has it had as many releases as like Battle Lines with regards to the characters and stuff like that?
That segue.
That segue was
as far as
horrible.
the characters of Battle Lines, I don't know because